The red sun of the distant planet had barely risen when Kale stepped onto the rocky surface of the abandoned starbase. The ground was uneven and cracked, littered with pieces of metal and broken equipment that had long since lost their purpose. Dust hung in the air, shimmering under the harsh light, and the wind carried the faint scent of burnt ozone. Kale adjusted his protective visor and scanned the horizon. He had been part of many expeditions, but this place gave him an uneasy feeling. Something about the ruins suggested that they were not merely abandoned, they had been deserted in haste. He tightened the straps of his pack, which carried both medical supplies and engineering tools. Kale's dual expertise as a medic and a field engineer had saved him countless times. Today, he needed every skill he had. The mission was simple in theory: survey the starbase, gather information, and retrieve anything valuable that could help the Galactic Council understand the sudden disappearance of the alien faction that had once inhabited this place. In practice, he knew that such missions rarely stayed simple. A sudden sound echoed across the rocky terrain. At first, Kale thought it was just the wind. Then he heard it again, a high-pitched whirring, almost mechanical, accompanied by the faint glow of energy pulses moving across the ruins. He froze. His instincts kicked in. These weren't natural sounds. Something was approaching. He crouched behind a crumpled wall, keeping his pack close. The whirring grew louder. Drones. The ruins had not been abandoned by chance. They were patrolled. Kale assessed the situation quickly. He could try to sneak around, but there were too many open lines of sight. His best option was to remain hidden and wait for a gap. He held his breath as the first drone passed by, its sensors scanning methodically. Light beams slicing across the dust. A second drone appeared, following a slightly different path. Kale counted his seconds and waited for the right moment. A sudden crash interrupted his focus. One of the larger drones had stumbled over debris, its balance faltering. It recovered quickly, but the noise had drawn more attention. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. Then, out of the corner of his visor, he saw her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her figure moved with the grace of a seasoned warrior, even as she staggered across the rocky ground. Golden armor, battered and dented, reflected the sunlight. Energy shields flickered around her, trying to keep her safe, but they were failing. Her hair, silver with streaks of violet, flowed in the wind. Her eyes, large, intelligent, and unyielding, met Kale's for the briefest moment, and he understood immediately. She was royalty, not just any leader, but the queen of this alien civilization. Kale's mind raced. He knew he should remain hidden, but the sight of her injured, fighting to survive against mechanical foes, pulled at something deeper than duty. He had trained for this, though nothing in his experience had prepared him for tending to a being of such importance under hostile fire. He moved carefully, low to the ground, positioning himself between her and the drones. He pulled out a compact energy blaster, not to attack, but to create distractions. A well-placed pulse could redirect the drones just long enough to give her space to move. He fired. One drone spun and crashed, its circuits sparking. Another changed direction, scanning the new disturbance. Kale took the moment to rush forward. She had collapsed behind a crumbling wall. Her breathing was shallow, and blood trickled from a deep cut along her shoulder. Kyle dropped to one knee beside her. His hands shook slightly as he checked her vitals. The alien physiology was complicated, but he had studied the emergency manuals carefully before the mission. He recognized the pulse rhythm and the fluctuating energy levels in her shield. She was close to critical. "Stay still," Kale said softly, though he doubted she understood his words. He activated a portable medkit, pulling out instruments designed for alien anatomy. Carefully, he began to clean the wound, applying stabilizing gels and sealing the cut with precision. The queen flinched, and he instinctively drew back. Then she spoke, her voice firm despite the pain, accented and melodic. "No, only my spouse may touch me." Kale froze. The words were clear, though fragmented. I'm not your spouse, he said, unsure if he was speaking aloud or to himself. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, a mixture of suspicion and resolve. She moved as if to push him away, but her strength was fading. Kale understood then that he had to respect her boundaries, even as he helped her survive. He switched to remote medical devices, tiny drones from his kit that could administer treatment without direct contact. The Queen watched, her expression a mixture of curiosity and wariness. Kale manipulated the devices with delicate precision. The small machines hovered over her injuries, repairing tissue, sealing cuts, and restoring energy flow. Slowly, her breathing stabilized, her eyes softened, and she allowed herself a small nod, an acknowledgement of trust without physical contact. The whirring of drones returned. Closer this time. Kyle looked up, scanning for escape routes. There was a faint shimmer in the distance, an energy signature that suggested a hidden shuttle bay. The Queen's eyes flicked in the same direction. She gestured weakly for him to follow. Kale understood immediately. Survival meant moving quickly and staying in sync with her. He supported her carefully as they moved through the ruins, the small med drones continuing to monitor her condition. Every step was dangerous. Debris shifted underfoot, and the sound of distant drones scanning the area reminded them both that time was short. Kale felt a growing respect for her strength. Despite her injuries, she remained composed, aware, and commanding, even in vulnerability. As they approached the shuttle, Kale noticed the design. Sleek, alien, unlike anything humans had ever constructed. Energy barriers protected the entrance, and intricate locks required precise sequences to open. Kale's engineering skills became essential. With careful manipulation of the ship's interface, he bypassed security protocols, all while keeping the Queen supported and safe. Once inside, the shuttle system was activated automatically. Soft light bathed the interior, revealing a compact but highly advanced cabin. Consoles glowed with alien symbols, and the controls responded to gestures rather than touch. The Queen slumped slightly, exhaustion evident in her posture. Kale guided her to a seated position, activating the ship's life support systems to take over her stabilization fully. She looked at him then, her eyes searching. You help me. Without touching, she said, her voice a whisper now, almost reverent. She nodded, unsure how to respond. Words felt inadequate in the face of what he had witnessed, the grace, authority, and cultural depth of this alien queen. Outside the shuttle, the ruins were silent, the drones disabled or distracted. Bale realized that this was only the beginning. Her injury had been an attempt on her life, but by whom and why? The Queen remained silent for a moment, then gestured for him to sit beside her. Respecting her space, Kale positioned himself close enough to assist if needed, but without violating the boundary she had set. She spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. You, human, you understand life, respect rules. I trust you. Maybe. Kale absorbed the meaning. In her culture, trust was not given lightly, especially not to outsiders. His ability to save her without breaking her customs had earned him something far more valuable than gratitude. It had earned cautious respect. The shuttle engines hummed softly as it lifted off the ground. Kale watched the ruins shrink beneath them, knowing that the journey ahead would be even more dangerous. He had stabilized her injuries for now, but the Queen's survival depended on his continued skill, ingenuity, and respect, and he would need every ounce of both if they were to escape whatever threat had targeted her. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated only by the subtle hum of the shuttle. Kale monitored the Queen's vitals remotely, adjusting medical protocols as her body slowly recovered. He studied her, noticing the fine details, the way she held herself, the intricate patterns on her armor, the faint scars that suggested a lifetime of battle. She was regal in every sense, yet human in her vulnerabilities. Then the Queen spoke again, more firmly this time. "Human, you are different. Many would not follow rules. Touch me without need. You honoring life, even mine." Kale felt a strange warmth. Recognition, respect, and connection formed across species, across worlds. He realized that this bond, fragile as it was, might determine not only her survival, but the fate of her people. The shuttle approached a nebula corridor, a safer route away from patrol drones and hostile ships. Kale prepared the navigation systems, adjusting for energy readings and gravitational anomalies. The Queen watched, her expression thoughtful. "You work with hands, mind, heart, all together," she observed. Kale smiled faintly. "I do what I can," he replied. As the shuttle glided through the stars, Kale considered the unspoken questions. Who had attacked her? What had caused the Council to fall? And why had the Queen's people vanished from the starbase in the first place? He knew answers would come, but for now, survival was the only certainty. The Queen leaned back, her breathing steadier now, her energy shield regenerating. "Only, spouse, touch me, yet you, honor, human, brave maybe," her voice trailed, leaving the meaning open but filled with cautious acknowledgement. Kale understood the weight of her words. Trust had limits, and he had not crossed them, but he had begun to earn a place in her world. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, and Kale felt a strange sense of purpose. He had been a medic, an engineer, and an explorer. But now he was something more, a protector, an ally, and perhaps a bridge between humanity and a civilization on the brink of collapse. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and mystery, but he knew he would face it without hesitation. And so the shuttle moved forward, carrying an injured queen and a human medic across the void, bound together by necessity, respect, and the quiet beginnings of trust. The shuttle glided silently through the nebula, its hull glowing faintly from the diffuse light of distant stars. Kale kept one hand on the control interface, adjusting the energy pulses to maintain a safe course. Outside, the nebula swirled with colors he had never seen on Earth, shades of purple and gold mixing with streaks of crimson, like a living painting stretching across the void. He had seen many wonders in his years as an explorer, but nothing compared to the sight of the nebula reflected in the Queen's eyes. She had lifted her head slightly, her silver-violet hair catching the faint light, and for the first time since he had found her, she looked relaxed, though still cautious. Kyle studied her, without breaking the boundary she had set. Her energy shield shimmered softly, responding to the med drones that hovered near her, keeping her vital signs stable. She had barely spoken since leaving the ruins, choosing instead to observe the shuttle systems and Kale's actions with an intense focus. He wondered what she saw when she looked at him. Human, fragile, yet capable, entirely dependent on ingenuity and determination to survive in the alien expanse. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Kyle reviewed the data streams from the shuttle sensors. Multiple readings indicated hostile patrols in the outer sectors. Whoever had attacked her at the ruins was still tracking her, and Kale realized they were not just hunters. They were strategists, aiming to prevent her return to her people. His mind raced, calculating the fastest and safest course, balancing speed against detection risk. Every decision he made could mean life or death. She finally spoke, her voice soft, almost reverent. "Human... survive you think fast." Kale nodded. "It's part of my work," he said, keeping his tone neutral. He didn't want to appear overconfident, and yet a subtle pride rose within him. She had noticed. The Queen's recognition was rare and valuable. Most would not acknowledge a human skill so openly. Minutes stretched into hours. The shuttle drifted deeper into the nebula, the colorful clouds masking their passage from the scanners of the enemy ships. Kale maintained a constant stream of small adjustments, monitoring the energy fluctuations that could betray their presence. Meanwhile, he kept a close eye on the Queen, who now leaned back slightly, her hands folded, watching him work. The med drones buzzed softly, keeping her wound clean and her shield stabilized. Kale had learned to appreciate the alien physiology in minute detail. The regenerative energy pathways, the layered tissue density, the way her heart rate adapted to stress. He marveled at the complexity, but also at how similar her vulnerabilities were to his own species. She shifted slightly, testing her energy shield, and Kale noticed a subtle change in her breathing. "Still hurt," she admitted quietly. Her eyes held a mixture of frustration and curiosity. "Why human care?" Kale hesitated, searching for words that could bridge worlds. "Life matters," he said simply. "Every life, even yours." The Queen's gaze softened. He could not tell if she understood the full meaning of his words, but her expression suggested she recognized the sincerity. The journey was far from safe. Sensors indicated a sudden spike in activity. An enemy patrol closing in from the north. Call activated defensive shields and rerouted energy to the thrusters. The Queen watched him manipulate the controls with swift precision. She seemed fascinated by human methods, which contrasted sharply with her own culture's emphasis on instinct and neural-linked technology. "They work different," she murmured, as if speaking to herself. "Your mind—" "Your hands?" Together. Kale smiled faintly. He understood. Humanity's strength often lay in improvisation, in applying knowledge with action. Where her people relied on pre-programmed systems and instinctive training, humans relied on adaptability. He had learned that lesson countless times. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the shuttle's main console. A cluster of enemy ships had entered the nebula, their energy signatures growing rapidly. Kale's mind shifted into full operational mode. "We have company," he said calmly, though his heart raced. The Queen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Even injured, she had a commanding presence, a queenly authority that seemed to demand respect. Kale activated stealth protocols, rerouting power to minimize their detectable energy signature. The shuttle slowed, drifting like a shadow within the nebula. The enemy vessels scanned the area, their beams sweeping across the clouds. For a tense moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, one of the patrols adjusted course, moving dangerously close. Kale realized they would have to act. He scanned the systems, searching for any tactical advantage. The nebula's ion currents offered a natural cover, but navigating them required precise calculations. Kale tapped into the shuttle's guidance interface, recalibrating the shields and thrusters in real time. The Queen observed silently, her expression unreadable. She had survived attacks before, but never had she seen a human operate with such focus under pressure. The shuttle shuddered as a blast passed close by, disrupting the nebula currents. Kale held steady, compensating for the sudden turbulence. The Queen leaned back, gripping the armrest slightly. "You do not panic," she said. Her voice carried a note of surprise, almost admiration. Kale nodded without looking at her. Panic would only get them killed. Minutes later, the patrols passed, unable to track them through the shifting nebula. Kale exhaled slowly, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. The Queen's gaze remained on him, studying his every movement. Human. Strange. "You survive, you think. Fast, you adapt," she said softly. Kayal smiled faintly. "It's what we do," he replied. Hours of travel passed. The Queen finally spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "My people counsel. Gone, you know why?" Kale shook his head. "Not yet," he admitted. "But we'll find out." She tilted her head slightly, her silver-violet hair catching the faint glow of the nebula. "Many enemies want me dead, so..." She trailed off. Her gaze flicked to him, a question unspoken, but heavy with meaning. Kayleigh understood. She expected him not just to protect her physically, but to navigate the complexities of her people's political struggles. He had prepared for medical emergencies and hostile encounters, but he had not expected to act as a strategist for an alien queen. Yet here he was. The shuttle emerged from the nebula near an uncharted moon orbiting a gas giant. Kale scanned the surface for landing options. The moon was barren, rocky, with jagged cliffs and deep craters. No energy signatures indicated life, but the terrain offered natural concealment. It would be a safe place to rest, repair the shuttle, and plan their next move. Kale guided the shuttle into a narrow canyon, landing with careful precision. The Queen observed the landing silently, her energy shield flickering lightly as she adjusted to gravity. Kyle deactivated the thrusters and moved to assist her out of the seat, careful to respect her boundary. "We're safe here for now," he said softly. She nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Safe, but not forever. Enemies follow," she said. Kale understood. Rest would be brief, but necessary. He activated environmental controls, adjusting oxygen levels and temperature for comfort. The Queen allowed him to monitor her vitals directly, no longer requiring complete distance. She seemed to appreciate his care, even if she could not touch him. The night on the moon was cold and silent. Stars glittered above, distant and unchanging. Kale set up a small field station, repairing minor damage to the shuttle and checking supplies. The Queen sat nearby, observing quietly, occasionally asking questions about human technology and methods. Kyle explained as best he could, using analogies she could understand. She listened intently, absorbing every detail. As hours passed, Kale noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. She was still cautious, but less tense. Trust was growing slowly, a fragile bridge between species. She began to share stories of her life, tales of her people's culture, their traditions, and the burdens of ruling a civilization. Kale listened, learning not just about her world, but about the qualities that had made her a leader: wisdom, courage, and resilience. Then, a sudden alert interrupted their peace. Energy readings from the shuttle indicated a nearby vessel, cloaked and moving with intent. Kale's heart sank. The enemies had tracked them despite the nebula. He quickly activated defensive shields and prepared countermeasures. The Queen rose slightly, her presence commanding even in vulnerability. "We face them together," she said. Kale nodded, ready to defend her with every tool at his disposal. The vessel emerged from stealth, its weapons charged. Kale maneuvered the shuttle behind a cliff, using the terrain as cover. The enemy fired, energy blasts skimming the surface of the moon. Kale's shields held, but the strain was evident. The Queen's eyes followed every movement, calculating, learning. She was not just a passenger. She was a strategist, a mind capable of understanding tactics and threat assessment. Kale realized that survival depended on their cooperation. Human ingenuity paired with alien intelligence. Hours passed in tense battle and evasive maneuvers. Kale used every trick, every ounce of knowledge to outmaneuver the attackers. The Queen contributed, suggesting paths and strategies based on her understanding of spatial dynamics and energy currents. Together they managed to evade capture, leaving the enemy vessel stranded in the gravitational pull of the gas giant. When the danger passed, Kale allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. The Queen looked at him, her expression a mixture of relief and recognition. "You... human, you think. Fast, act, clever, brave," she said softly. Kale felt the weight of her words. This acknowledgement meant more than gratitude. It meant trust, a rare and precious thing in her world. Night deepened on the moon, and the shuttle hummed softly as systems stabilized. Kale monitored the Queen's vitals, noting that her strength had returned enough to rest properly. She leaned back, eyes half closed, reflecting on the day's trials. Kale felt a quiet satisfaction, but also a deep awareness that the challenges ahead would be even greater. The bond between them, had begun. Not physical, not emotional in a human sense yet, but a connection forged through respect, shared danger, and mutual reliance. The Queen, once vulnerable and distant, now regarded him with cautious trust. Kale, once a medic and explorer, now understood that he was part of something far larger, the survival of a civilization, the preservation of knowledge, and perhaps the beginning of a new alliance between humanity and the stars. As the shuttle systems entered low power mode for rest, Kale allowed himself a final glance at the Queen. She was still strong, still regal, but undeniably human in her vulnerabilities. He realized that saving her life had been only the first step. Earning her full trust, navigating the perils ahead, and understanding her world would test every skill he had, and perhaps demand sacrifices he had never imagined. The stars outside remained silent witnesses, endless and eternal. Kale closed his eyes briefly, preparing for whatever the next day would bring. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew. One truth: humanity's courage, ingenuity, and respect for life had given the Queen a chance to survive. And survival was only the beginning. The first light of the distant sun crept over the jagged horizon of the moon, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. Kale rose early, careful not to disturb the Queen. Her form was still under the Medron's soft hum, her breathing steady and calm. For the first time in days, Kale allowed himself a small sense of relief. The Queen had survived the initial attacks, but he knew that survival was only temporary. Her enemies were relentless, and the journey to restore her throne and her people's safety had only just begun. He checked the shuttle's systems, running diagnostics on shields, propulsion, and life support. Every parameter was critical. A single malfunction could spell disaster. Kale's hands moved quickly, with the precision of a seasoned engineer, and yet his mind remained aware of the Queen nearby. She was awake now, watching him quietly, her expression a mix of curiosity and measured caution. Even injured, she retained an air of command, and Kale found himself respecting her more with each passing moment. She spoke softly, her voice carrying the weight of authority and restraint. "Human, yesterday, you saved me, not just body, mind, trust." Kale nodded, aware that the bond between them had deepened, even if unspoken. "It's what I do," he replied simply, careful not to overstate. She tilted her head slightly, considering him with an intensity that made Kale aware of the trust she was placing in him. As they prepared to depart the moon, Kale knew the next stage of their journey would test them in ways he had not anticipated. The Queen needed more than protection. She needed a strategy, an understanding of human ingenuity, and a partner who could anticipate dangers that were not visible to the naked eye. Kale's mind raced with possibilities, balancing caution with action, and he knew that the fate of her people now rested heavily on their collaboration. The shuttle lifted into the low gravity, moving carefully along a winding trajectory to avoid detection. Kale maneuvered the controls with precision, guiding the craft through narrow canyons and past jagged cliffs. Outside, the gas giant loomed large, its swirling storms of color reflecting across the shuttle's hull. Kyle marveled at the beauty and danger of it all. There, in the vastness of space, survival depended on every decision, every calculation, every ounce of skill. The Queen observed silently, her eyes reflecting both the nebula's glow and her cautious trust in Kale. "Human, you, not reckless. Careful, think," she said. Kale smiled faintly. "Careful as survival," he replied. She studied him for a moment longer, then leaned back, as if accepting the fact that she was in capable hands. Hours passed in tense travel, the shuttle navigating between asteroids and through hidden gravitational fields. Kale monitored every system, adjusting energy flows, rerouting power to shields when sensors indicated distant patrols, and maintaining life support for the Queen. Her wounds had stabilized, but her strength remained fragile. Kale's med drones hovered constantly, administering small bursts of healing energy and monitoring vital signs. Finally, They emerged near the edge of a system that had been mapped only partially in galactic charts. Kale's instruments detected a hidden planet with terrain conducive to concealment, a place where the Queen could regain strength and begin planning her return. The planet was dense with forests and hills, with rivers winding through valleys. It was an ideal location for hiding from enemy patrols while preparing for the next stage of their mission. Kyle guided the shuttle down through the atmosphere, the controls responding to subtle changes in gravity and wind.
The Queen watched, her expression unreadable.
Even in rest, she exuded authority, a queen in exile seeking refuge. Kale respected her vigilance, understanding that she was never entirely at ease, never truly safe. The shuttle landed softly in a clearing surrounded by dense trees. Kale deactivated the engines and helped the Queen out, careful to maintain her personal boundaries. She moved with surprising grace, despite her injuries, and Kale noted the strength that had allowed her to survive. She surveyed the area, her eyes calculating paths, exits, and potential dangers. "Safe for now," she said quietly. Kale nodded, already planning their next moves. As they set up a temporary camp, Kale worked to repair minor damage to the shuttle and replenish energy reserves. The Queen observed, occasionally asking questions about human technology, which Kale answered with analogies she could understand. She was intelligent and curious, eager to comprehend the methods that had saved her life. Over time, Kale realized that she was not only learning about humans, but also evaluating him, testing the limits of trust and capability. Night fell over the planet, and Kale maintained a vigil while the Queen rested. He reflected on the events of the past days, the ruins, the attack, the chase through the nebula. Each event had tested him, forcing him to think quickly, act decisively, and respect the Queen's boundaries. Humanity's strength lay in its ingenuity, adaptability, and courage, and he had drawn on all of it to protect a being who could have been entirely beyond his understanding. The Queen awoke in the middle of the night, her energy shield glowing softly. She moved to a nearby observation point, her eyes scanning the stars. Kale joined her silently, aware that her trust was earned in moments, not given freely.
"Human?"
"Tomorrow we act?" she asked. Kale nodded. "We plan, we prepare, we survive. Then we move to reclaim what is lost." Her eyes held a mixture of determination and hope, and Kale felt a sense of purpose stronger than fear. The next day, they began reconnaissance. Kale used portable scanners to map the surrounding forests and valleys. The Queen guided him, pointing out vantage points and paths that could offer strategic advantage. Her knowledge of terrain, combined with his human ingenuity, created a plan that balanced caution with opportunity. Kale admired her intelligence, her ability to think ahead, and the way she trusted him without hesitation. Suddenly, the scanners picked up unusual energy signatures. Enemy patrols were moving closer, converging on their location. Kale acted quickly, rerouting power to shields and preparing the shuttle for a rapid escape. The Queen remained calm, her voice steady. "Day come, but we ready," she said. Kale nodded, appreciating her composure. It was rare to find such calm in the face of imminent danger. The enemy patrols arrived, skimming the edge of the forest. Kale activated defensive measures, using the terrain to conceal their position. He deployed decoy signals to mislead sensors, giving them the advantage. The Queen observed, contributing tactical suggestions based on her understanding of energy flows and spatial awareness. Together, they outmaneuvered the patrols, avoiding confrontation while sending signals to confuse and delay them. Hours of tension passed, the quiet of the forest interrupted only by distant alerts. Kale monitored every energy reading, adjusting strategies in real time. The Queen occasionally spoke, her voice a calm guide through the chaos. "Human, clever, careful, strong." Kale smiled faintly, understanding that her praise was rare and earned. At the height of their efforts, a larger enemy vessel emerged, scanning for life signs and energy sources. Kale knew that direct confrontation was dangerous. Instead, he used the shuttle's systems to create false energy signatures, leading the vessel away from their true location. The Queen observed silently, recognizing the ingenuity and patience required for such a strategy. Once the threat passed, Kale allowed himself a moment to breathe. The Queen approached him, her expression softening. "Human, you saved me!" Again, not just hands, mind, courage. "Honor," she said quietly. Kale nodded, knowing that trust was being forged between them. Fragile, but growing stronger. As night fell, the Queen asked Kale to teach her more about human methods, engineering, improvisation, and strategy. He explained each concept in simple terms, using examples that connected with her experiences. She listened intently, absorbing knowledge and evaluating its application. Kale realized that this was more than learning. She was preparing to reclaim her throne, integrating human ingenuity with her own civilization's strengths. Days passed in a rhythm of planning, observation, and cautious movement. Kale and the Queen became a team, their respect and trust deepening with each challenge. Enemy patrols remained a threat, but their combined intelligence allowed them to stay one step ahead. Kale marveled at her resilience, her ability to maintain authority even when vulnerable, and the way she balanced caution with decisive action. One evening, while reviewing maps of the surrounding region, the Queen spoke softly. "Human, I test you. Only spouse. Touch me, yet you honor life, courage, respect." Kale understood the significance. She had tested him through danger and adversity, observing his reactions, his respect for her rules, and his willingness to act selflessly. Trust had been granted, cautiously, but it was genuine. Kale responded simply, "I respect you, your life, your people." "Your rules. That is my choice." The Queen's eyes reflected a mixture of relief, gratitude, and quiet admiration. She did not move closer, but the acknowledgement was enough. Trust, she had shown, was more powerful than touch, more binding than any physical act. The next morning, they prepared to move deeper into enemy territory. Kale recalibrated the shuttle, checked med drones, and ensured energy systems were optimized, the Queen observed, her eyes calculating every possibility. Together they reviewed strategies, combining human improvisation with alien intuition. Kale felt a sense of purpose and connection stronger than he had ever known. He was no longer just a medic. He was a protector, an ally, and a bridge between civilizations. As they lifted off, leaving the forested moon behind, Kale felt the weight of responsibility and possibility. The journey was far from over, but trust had been forged in fire, courage, and ingenuity. The Queen's life, the survival of her people, and the potential for a new alliance between humans and her civilization depended on every choice they would make from this point onward. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent witnesses to their determination, resilience, and the fragile bond forming between two species, united by respect, ingenuity, and courage. Kale knew that whatever lay ahead, humanity's strength, its ability to think, act, and honor life, had earned a place in the heart of a queen and the future of her people.